So yeah, we're recording these. We'll post these on our YouTube channel where we have up our how to conduct LGBTQ plus market research webinar from earlier in the year, as well as most recently young professionals. I think we're going to slice and dice each of these as their own individual sessions to make them a little more digestible. More good news on the greater New York front. I think roughly we're hoping for December 14th to be the holiday party, but we did a pulse of some members and folks in the area, and we're really excited to be bringing everybody back to an in-person get-together, which I think will be great. I know that folks were really excited to be at Quirks. CRC is next week, and then for us locally, Quirks New York in November. So the team is going to be looking at some venues this week, safe and protocols will be in place, so there's no concerns there. We love you all, so we wouldn't do anything that would put anybody at risk, and we'll be aligned with federal and state mandates, whatever that means, as that changes by the moment. So without further ado, we'll have more information. We have additional mental wellness sessions in November and December as an expansion of our It's Okay series, which is a great opportunity to check in. And we know that times are changing and things are highs and lows. As it gets darker, days become shorter. It definitely affects our mental wellness, and just having a safe place for us to look out for each other is would be one of our focuses this year. So without further ado, it is my pleasure to introduce Adriana Watterson, Chief Revenue Officer and Insights and Strategy Lead at Horowitz Research. As Chief Revenue Officer and Insights and Strategy Lead, Adriana oversees Horowitz's Latinx, like when people read your bio, Adriana, biopic, millennial and Gen Z research. She also heads up Green Horizons, Horowitz's recently launched division specializing in cannabis and holistic health. For full disclosure, my firm, Paradigm Sample, is the sample partner on the Green Horizons research. We're really excited and proud of it, and really just appreciate Adriana not only presenting today, but then being flexible to move up a little bit her session so that we could be a little more fluid for our schedule today. So thank you so much, Adriana, for being here. Adriana has also moderated other webinars and sessions for us in the past. So she's just been a really big supporter of Greater New York, and she has a very busy schedule these next couple of days. So thanks for making time to share the story with us.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you. Thank you so much for having me, AJ, and always appreciate the opportunity to come and share some insights with other research professionals, and super excited to share this research that we're going to be talking about today.
I made you a co-host, so you should be able to share your screen.
All right, I will do that.
Should be able to rock and roll.
All right. Okay. So first of all, let me just make sure. I don't know what I'm doing. Hold on. Am I sharing a screen that you see that actually has data on it?
I can see your screen. Yep. You just.
Am I flowing through?
You just fast forward through everything. So there we go. Cultivating.
I was in the middle of the deck somewhere. So.
Okay.
Cultivating the cannabis market.
You're showing us.
Yeah.
You're showing us the presenter view of your.
I got that. Okay. All right. So let me. I always forget how to do this. Okay. So how about I just display settings? Swap. Okay. Should be right now, right?
All right. Looks good.
All right. Excellent. So absolutely excited to share this. As AJ said, we did partner with Paradigm, who was they were our sample provider for this study, and our partner really for this study. So we look forward to getting it out there in the marketplace and talking about not just the study itself, but really the emerging cannabis space and the kinds of opportunities and imperatives that it really places on all of us in the research industry. So why are we talking about cannabis today? I mean, unless you're living under a rock, that there's been a lot of movement in terms of legalizing cannabis in the past couple of years. And it really, as an industry, cannabis has the potential to impact every one of our verticals that we all work in, right? Whether your clients are in healthcare or CPG or, the wine and spirits industry, the tourism and travel industry. I mean, there's just so many implications that where we're going to start to see, cannabis sort of seeping into the work that we do. And so we feel that it's of course important to talk to marketers and business development folks and everything about this research, but also really important to talk to you all about developing a better understanding of the cannabis marketplace, cannabis users, et cetera, because this will become an important part of your business practice moving forward. And especially, and I hope that this is one of the things that we get to achieve today, is that it's really going to be important for us to become more eloquent about the nuances of cannabis cultures and communities, so that we can help our clients get beyond sort of the myths and stereotypes that might prevent them from making intelligent business decisions and really understanding these consumers in well-rounded and nuanced ways. So first of all, let's talk about what's happening in terms of legalization. The map you have here, we didn't create this. We found it from another study, just so you all know, or just some data that was collected. But you can see the map of the United States today. It is getting increasingly colorful. The yellow states are states where recreational marijuana or cannabis and medical are both legalized. The green states are states that have legalized cannabis for medicinal use, and then the gray states are ones where still nothing has happened. But one of the things that we have been seeing, and I think I have this in our data, is that, or coming up next on the next slide, is that much of the movement is from states that go from being legal for medicinal to being legal for everything. So for example, right now a total of 18 states are legal for both medical and recreational, compared to 11 in 2019. And 5 of the states that were legal only in 2019, which were Arizona, Illinois, Montana, New Jersey, and my home state of New York, have become legal for both medicinal and recreational since 2019. So, for those of you who are from the New York area, I'll just have you know that you no longer have to, if you're interested in cannabis, you no longer have to find some sneaky little drug dealer on the corner of Washington Square Park. I was there the other day, and everybody's got booths, and there's choices, and there's options, and there's gummies, and there's flour, and all sorts of stuff that you could buy legally out in public. In addition, there were 2 states that were completely illegal in 2019 who are now legal for both medicinal and recreational. That was South Dakota and Virginia. And then other movement in Alabama and Mississippi in 2019, which was the last time we did our study. Those states were legal completely, and now they've gone to legal for medicinal. So, as states are kind of wetting their, dipping their feet into the legal for medicinal only and seeing how that's going, you're seeing that more and more states are ultimately allowing for recreational purchase as well. So now let's talk about the size of this cannabis market that we're talking about. These numbers have shifted pretty dramatically since our study in 2019. At this point, we're talking about 41% of the population still is never, they don't use cannabis, they never tried it, they claim they never touched it even in college. And then on the other hand, 39% of folks told us that they're weekly users. For some perspective, in 2019, our weekly users were about 28%. So this is a substantial jump, but you saw also the substantial jump in legalization efforts, as well as other factors that have been happening over the past 2 years. COVID and all of these sort of, fallout, mental health fallout and other things related to COVID and BLM and all of this kind of stuff, which we think are a big part of the reason why we're seeing such an uptick in COVID consumption, in cannabis consumption. And overall, 45% of adults are consuming cannabis at least monthly in our survey, and this was adults 18 plus. When we look at reported usage by your state's legal status, we see that of the universe of cannabis users, 46% of those folks are live in states where it's recreationally legal. 26% of folks who are cannabis users live in a state where it's medicinally legal, but not recreationally legal, and an additional 28% of folks live in states where it's not legal. So
I think she's on mute.
Who is me? Am I on mute?
No, I can
Good?
hear.
Okay,
Everything's
great.
good. I can hear.
All right. So I think, when you see that 46% of folks living in recreationally legal states, you can understand that as legalization happens more and more people are going to be open to it. And I will report to you that from a very, very qualitative perspective, I've seen that happen in my own family. My 73-year-old sister, who, had never smoked anything in her whole life. She lives out in San Francisco. I took her to a dispensary because she was having problems with her knee, and she is now a user of THC patches for her knee, where she had knee replacement surgery, and it's now not like, it's giving her a lot of pain. So this 73-year-old is now a user. And then I come home from my trip to California, and I go and visit my other sister and her husband, who are in their lower 70s, like 71 and 72. I know they used to indulge back in college, but never since. And I find out that they now have gummies. So quite a shock to the system. But I'm definitely, seeing from a qualitative perspective how legalization is really changing behaviors, even among people who were not cannabis users in the past or anytime recently. All right, so let me try to see if I can get to the next slide. It really is a market that is primed for growth. We asked people, about their experiences consuming cannabis since COVID or during COVID, because we just fielded this pretty recently. And of the folks that we surveyed that were cannabis users, 42% said that they were consuming more cannabis during COVID than they were before, while only 10% said that they were consuming less during the pandemic. And this increase in consumption has little signs of slowing down. About 2 out of 3 current users expect to use the same amount that they are now post-pandemic. So clearly a market that will continue to grow. So what are cannabis users all about anyway? I mean, I just told you about my 70-plus-year-old siblings who are now all of a sudden in the cannabis market. So it really is not just for stoners anymore. I mean, that image of, the dark alleys and the sharing the joints and, the college kids just getting stoned in their dorm rooms and stuff like that. We've got to kind of shift that mentality. That, of course, is still a part of cannabis consumption, but we're now seeing a marketplace that's being filled up with other ways and behaviors, ways to consume and behaviors around cannabis. So, for example, we have this wine glass here. Well, yes, there is now cannabis-infused wine and spirits and beer and all sorts of things like that. So you can see how those could lend themselves to very different opportunities to consume and might target different kinds of consumers for them. So when we looked at the profile of cannabis users, we also learned some interesting things, some of which were pretty intuitive, others of which maybe were not. So first of all, not surprisingly, cannabis users are younger in general than non-users. So 38% of them are 18 to 34, compared to 17% who are 18 to 34 among non-users. They do tend to identify as liberal more than non-users, 39% compared to 25%. They are also more likely to identify as LGBTQIA than non-users. That is also a function of the age. We're seeing separately in other research. Of course, we know that younger generations of Americans are really understanding, have a very different understanding about sexual orientation, fluidity, and gender identity, and all these other kinds of things. So this certainly doesn't surprise us. They are more likely to be urban dwellers. 35% live in cities compared to 29% of non-users. And they're more likely to be kids in the home. And as a parent of a 15-year-old, I can totally understand and empathize with that. And why are cannabis users using cannabis? So relaxation, to help with general stress and anxiety, to help me fall asleep, social anxiety, pain management, to socialize with friends, to enhance my enjoyment of movies and TV. Some of this, again, very intuitive, to relieve boredom, to inspire creativity, and to enhance my enjoyment of food you can see how all of those items sort of rank in our question. But definitely thought interesting that this idea of relaxation and anxiety and sleep management and social anxiety and pain actually come up as higher reasons than the kind of stuff that we might think about, the social life and the let's get stoned and watch a movie, or that kind of stuff. Like, it's really about helping address issues that many of us as adults in today's world have to deal with. Also, cannabis users are more likely to be socially involved, to seek out holistic alternative medicines, and be interested in supporting, local businesses. So this, of course, aligns with this idea of a more liberal, younger, kind of more woke crowd. So you can see here the data among cannabis users. 26% are oriented towards natural and holistic lifestyles, rather than 18% among non-users. Supporting local businesses, 35% compared to 28% among non-users. This we thought was interesting too. They tend to skew towards being, into trendy stuff and being very social. So 13% purchase or own luxury brands compared to 6% of non-users. 10% go to nightclubs pretty often, of course, outside of COVID. 3% among non-users. They're also very engaged in technology, 30% compared to 23%. Oh, and I missed the bars, part of the social life, 12% compared to 5% among non-users. So what this also tells me, though, when we think about our clients and the consumers that we talk to, this is a target audience that is actually very desirable for so many of our industry verticals that we all serve, right? So are we serving the spirits industry? Are we serving, the travel and hospitality industry? Are we addressing talking to tech clients? Are our brands, our client brands, luxury brands? Are we in the pharma space? Because, of course, pharma is now very interested in natural and holistic stuff, as well as, of course, cannabis and CBD stuff. So all of these data just point to a very, very desirable consumer target that we should all be paying attention to. And as I think some data that you saw on another slide suggests, the recreational market is really larger than the medicinal market, and it's a little bit different, right? So among the folks that we spoke to who are cannabis users, 19% were medicinal only, 37% were recreational only users, and almost half, 44%, are users for both medicinal and recreational reasons. But those who are medicinal only are a little bit different than those who are recreational only. They tend to be skew older and lower income. They are more likely to be consuming cannabis by themselves. I mean, this is obviously they're doing this for medicinal reasons, so they might be suffering from chronic illness or acute issues, or cancer, or MS, or any range of illnesses that cannabis can provide relief for. So that might be the reason why they're perhaps a little less social, etc. And they also tend to be loyal to a specific dispensary, which also makes sense. They know the products that they want to buy and that they trust, and they know who to go to get them. And also, of course, we've got more medicinal only states, and we have some states that just became recreational. So we don't have, for example, in New York, we don't really have dispensaries yet. It's going to be at least about a year before we start to see, those cropping up like they've cropped up in LA and San Francisco and other markets that legalized for recreational use faster than we did. So that explains those data as well. And when we talked to medicinal users about why they're using cannabis, so it's about the same stuff that we saw on the other page for recreational, right? Anxiety, depression, insomnia, chronic pain, PTSD. So specifically, 82% are using cannabis to address some sort of psychological issue. 51%, and some of this actually crosses over. They're not mutually exclusive. 51% are using it to manage pain. 25% have specific chronic diseases, whether it's arthritis or other things like that they are addressing. And 19% medicinal users are using cannabis to address COVID-related, effects, whether it's the long-term side effects of COVID or whether it's mental health issues related to COVID. So we went through a profile of the cannabis consumer, both the overall and the recreational and the medicinal. So how are consumers consuming it? There's lots of ways, as you might already know, which provide a lot of opportunities for new products and services out there in the marketplace. So smoking is still the most popular form of consuming, and that is reflected also when you go into a dispensary. You see that there's just an incredible variety of flower and different brands. And I mean, this is a market that's becoming like a brand-oriented market, which is really interesting. So 64% smoke flower regularly, 27% vape regularly, 27% use edibles regularly, 9% tinctures, 9% drinks, and 9% topicals and transdermals, like I was mentioning my sister uses. And of course, there's also a lot of overlap with this. But all of these new behaviors, I mean, vaping is relatively new, the edible market, the tinctures, the drinks, all of this stuff, these are all relatively new entrants into the market. And as you can imagine, the limitations of the legalization issues really make it very difficult for brands, to drive their business in this very fragmented space. While we're talking about certain states, and you can't cross state lines with products, you can't import and export from one state to another. It's like very complicated. So, for example, a friend of mine who has that wine, the cannabis infused wine product. I mean, she only sells in California because that's where she's manufacturing it. So as these other products become more widely available, and hopefully soon as we see federal legalization, all of these other things beyond smoking flower are going to start to become things that you're going to see much more commonly, both in terms of access and usage. And when it comes to usage, we also saw some differences between the recreational and medicinal users. Recreational are more likely to use vapes than medicinal. They're also more likely to be consuming tinctures, edibles, and drinks. And actually, recreational users are also higher spenders than medicinal only. And we already had that other data. I don't know why we have it twice here. I apologize. So the bottom line is that you're going to be finding cannabis products in lots of different forms in many new places. I had some fun reading some articles about projections about when we might start seeing cannabis on supermarket shelves or cannabis products. And there is certainly a lot of interest in other cannabis or CBD infused products. For example, baked goods. I mean, we all know about, the pot brownies of our college days, perhaps. I think I'm revealing a lot about my college lifestyle in this presentation. But anyway, we remember that. But now there's a market for cookies, packaged goods, right? Packaged cookies and brownies and cakes and lollipops and all sorts of things. Certainly, the gummies market is tremendous. There are a lot of brands that are making gummies, and they're available in all different kinds of flavors and mixtures of indica and sativa and all these kinds of things. Cannabis infused chocolate, hard candies, all of these. You can see that interest in these, or the appeal of these, are all in the upwards of basically 2 and 3 consumers, or cannabis consumers, interested in edible products. And similarly, there's a great deal of interest in cannabis infused drinks. Obviously, we're seeing the not alcohol related drinks a little higher on the interest scale, water, soft drinks, teas and coffees, juice and smoothies. But then we're also seeing upwards of, about 4 out of 10 cannabis users interested in cannabis infused beers, wines, as well as liquors and spirits. So lots of new products that you'll be seeing in the marketplace. And again, thinking about how you might serve your clients' interests. That intersection between what a traditional, say, soft drink company might be interested in learning about in terms of research, and what they might be interested in knowing about cannabis users. There's going to be some intersection there very soon, and that's just one example. There's also a market for many kinds of cannabis-related activities. So we asked consumers to tell us how interested they would be in touring cannabis facilities, like visiting, like you would do visiting a winery or a brewery. And 55% of cannabis users are interested in that kind of tourism. 50% are interested in cultural activities, like being able to attend theatrical or musical events, concerts, plays, movies, etc., where you could just go up and buy cannabis products at the concession stand. 44% are interested in cannabis-themed events, like, going to a painting class where instead of it being a wine and painting, it's cannabis and painting, or a cannabis yoga class, or culinary classes that teach you how to cook with cannabis. I mean, that's a whole, thing in and of itself. And in fact, I was just reading some articles about recipes that are cannabis recipes. Cannabis-infused recipes. And finally, 47% are interested in being able to attend bars and lounges where, cannabis and cannabis-infused beverages are made available. So it's not just about the products and the services. It's not just about the products that you see on the shelves, but also about the services and experiences that are going to be opening up when it comes to cannabis. And we're not just talking about cannabis with THC. We also asked about CBD products that are basically, cannabis products that don't have the THC part of it, but still have the relaxation and all of that benefits through the CBD. And 1 out of 3 cannabis users are using CBD products in addition to their cannabis consumption at least monthly. And specifically what they're using, the top ones are candies or gummies. 42% are using those. 32% are using massage oils and things like that for pain. 21% are using personal care items like shampoos and lotions and things like that. And even 14% are using products for their pets. So when my sister went and bought her patch for her knee, she also bought CBD oil to put on her dog, who is like a Cujo. And hopefully, I think that's been working for him to calm him down a little bit. So what's on the horizon as far as people's attitudes about legalization? So there is a tremendous amount of support for legalization and decriminalization, which I think is incredibly important. So huge numbers, right? So among cannabis users, which is the light green, 92%, almost everybody, is in support of federal legalization for medicinal cannabis. And actually 85% of consumers overall that we surveyed, including non-users, are supporters of federal legalization. Similar numbers, 89% and 73% respectively for federal legalization of recreational cannabis. So a ton of support about that. And finally, 88% of cannabis users, 74% of consumers overall, are supporters of, expunging cannabis records for folks that, just have these minor offenses on their records, which are preventing them from getting jobs, from furthering their education. And of course, as you probably all know, this is part of the structural inequality and discrimination that has been happening to people of color in our country for decades. In fact, the criminalization of marijuana was in part designed to, quote, control and police neighborhoods of color. And it's Black youth and, now Black adults, but Black people in general, especially Black males, who have disproportionately been impacted by over-policing due to cannabis. And so that one effort right there to expunge cannabis records for people who have minor offenses related to cannabis is going to make a tremendous difference in, the work that we're all trying to do towards social justice and especially in the criminal justice system. So I think that's a tremendous number showing that there's that kind of support for expunging cannabis records. So where does that take us? And unfortunately, I could go on, but this is the last page of our presentation today. So what does this mean for all of you? I think I've said this throughout, but we really wanted to bring this presentation to all of you because we really think that there's a tremendous growth opportunity here for all of us in the research space. As cannabis becomes more widespread and more socially acceptable, there's going to be more and more opportunities to do research among cannabis consumers and about cannabis products. So it's really, part of our education as researchers to keep up, to get, familiar with this emerging market and really translate it into a business opportunity for all of you, whether you're moderators, whether you're, in quant research, whatever. This is something that, we really need to start baking in, pardon the pun, to our research offerings for our clients and the way that we think about our consumers that we're surveying and studying. Of course, it's tremendously important as researchers to always keep up with culture, right? This all represents a seismic cultural shift in the United States. And you're seeing the impact of legalization. We saw that in the number of people who are consuming today, which is growing. And so this is going to start impacting consumer behaviors, consumer preferences, consumer attitudes about many different kinds of products and services that they interact with. So for example, somebody who, maybe was a regular wine drinker, those folks that, always had a glass of wine with dinner, maybe they're going to stop being such heavy wine drinkers and they're going to start, becoming cannabis users. I don't know, but we don't know how cannabis and all of these products that are going to be on the market are going to impact culture, consumer behavior, and all of that. So really, this presentation was about alerting us all to keep our ears to the ground and be tuned in to these cultural shifts that are definitely going to be taking place. And of course, finally, it's about serving your clients. We are all about bringing insights to our clients and pointing them to new business opportunities, to new, things that they might not have thought about for their business and ways to grow. And cannabis definitely will be one of those ways that many of our product verticals and industry verticals will be able to grow and evolve. So it is also about serving your clients. And I think that gets us to the end of the presentation. Thank you all so much for taking part, and I'm happy to answer any questions. I'll stop the screen share at this point.
Thanks so much, Adriana. We'll wait for questions in the chat, but I think what was really great is the fact that you touch a lot of kind of stigmas and things that have been known for a while, especially when you talked about the holistic and the health aspect of it. I think a lot of folks would be surprised to find that that segment is pretty health conscious and utilizes, at times non-traditional, methods for other things, and is can be very spiritual, and I think that's great. And then the social justice aspect, as I mentioned in the chat, here in Connecticut, I think we legalized a few months back, but we won't have dispensaries anytime soon. But it was more so that the legal process can be kind of kickstarted aggressively to to right the wrongs of the past. And so I think that's really important. And again, I know folks who use it from the medical side, MS and PTSD specifically, and it's had dramatic life impacts. And then from a factual standpoint, those areas where marijuana has been legalized, the number of opioid deaths and addictions have dramatically decreased. And so I think it's a beautiful new world, being able to openly discuss this in a business and research perspective. So again, thank you. And if anyone has any questions, please feel free to ask.
Yeah, I see a question about the data on occasions for usage. And Mike, I don't recall. I know we asked that question in 2019. I think we might have not asked it in this wave, only because we made room for some COVID-related questions. But I'll double check, and if AJ could put me in touch with you, I'm happy to check in on that and answer that question.
Yeah, I don't know if we have cuts by which streaming service gets better edible usage or not, but maybe we can find it out now. I did read some messages. Folks want to know where they could get kind of some copies of this information, or obviously we'll be recording this, but is there anywhere they can get information on some of the facts and data from the deck?
Yeah, we'll be sharing this. I can share to this group through you, AJ, and it's not the full study. The study is obviously much more robust, but happy to share this through AJ and his folks.
Great. Yeah, we're really, really excited.
And there was a question, I think, for me about how I feel about talking about this so openly. And, I'm used to talking about very difficult subjects. My area of expertise for many, many years has been in the multicultural space. So I've talked about, sociopolitical issues and cultural issues, and, addressed issues of racism and other and stereotypes and all kinds of things like that. So I've never been afraid to mince words about what I see is happening culturally and socially in this country. And, no. And I don't know that I would have so freely admitted that I'm a user without living in a legal state. But yeah, no, I don't feel any concerns about that. And if my role if I can play a role in sort of shifting some of those stigmas, I want to be able to do so.
Yeah, I think it's great. And I think you go to, not normal. we're not having cocktail parties and stuff anymore, but still, I just think even the discussions about it and the accessibility is just, it's definitely a positive turning point. I think it's really important, because I think that there's a stereotype that's associated with that. I know when I was younger, my father would say the marijuana. If you have any just talking about it at home, and the acceptance of it there has been great.
Yeah. Well, I have to tell you all a funny story. I wish I could find the shirt, but I went to Brandeis University, graduated in 1990. And in my, I think, freshman year of college, how they go around the dorms and they sell shirts, so t-shirts and stuff. So these folks were selling a t-shirt, which I still have, but it's literally a rag. Like, it's got so many holes in it, and it says Marijuana Research Foundation, and then on the back it says offices located at Brandeis, Bentley, BU, and like a couple of other schools. And I kept that t-shirt for many, many years, and I find it really ironic that I am actually now in marijuana research. So who would have thought?
That's a good one. All right.
Yeah.
Well, if anybody has any questions, feel free to reach out to myself, Adriana. We're more than happy to address them. Like I said, I think it's really important. I know there's a couple folks who are doing the good work in this space, and I think it's not just about the recreational aspect of it. I think medical treatment wise, anxiety and other things, it's really helpful. And the more you learn, the more it's not just a dazed and confused bong hits episode. So I think it's really important to discuss it. And I don't know, I feel also with anything, do your own research, and it's important to ask questions and learn. I think folks like Adriana are spearheading that discussion and kind of helping reduce the stigma that's associated with that.
Well, thank you. I appreciate the opportunity to present this today, and look forward to collaborating with all of you in different ways on this kind of research.
All right, great. Well, thank you so much.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right. So that wraps up our our day today with the sessions. If everybody's sticking around, we're going to go into the breakout rooms. We'll, if it's a little early for some, but it's 4:45, so we always round up, and so it's 5 o'clock here and somewhere else. Just good to catch up with friends and see folks. I know some folks are joining us now, so you can turn your videos back on. I'm going to use I'm going to stop recording.